Hi Math 8 students, I hope you're having a good Wednesday so far. And here I am with your second lesson of the week in chapter 13. This is probably going to be one of the last lessons that we do in this chapter. And I'm actually borrowing it from my algebra class because I think it's a really important concept that I know you will use a ton in Algebra 1, so this will give you a good introduction. It's really not that hard. It's actually the opposite of what we did yesterday. What we did yesterday was multiplying binomials. We used FOIL. Today, we're going to start with our polynomial and we're going to factor it. And it's called something called Magic X. So it's really kind of fun. I like it. So let's say a prayer and get started. Father in heaven, I just pray so much for my students that you would help them to focus and learn well so they do great on their chapter 13 test, and so that you would strengthen so that they would do great in Algebra 1 next year. This would be a great foundation for them. And I pray so much for myself that you'd strengthen me and help me and give me the right words so that I can be the very best teacher I can be. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's get started, and we're going to do this lesson. 13.5. Well, actually, it's 13.5 for us, but it's not in your book, okay? So it's going to be our 13.5. Okay, so how we're going to do this is I'm going to write the steps as we go, okay? And we're going to do a problem at the same time. So the directions are factor x squared plus 11x plus 18. Okay, so this has the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a represents the coefficient or the number in front of x squared. B represents the coefficient of the x term, and C is the constant that's by itself. It doesn't have a variable. Now that's important because we're going to use those in our steps. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make an x like this. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then here's our first step. Put C in the top of the x. So whatever number is by itself at the end, we want to do that first. So I'm going to put 18 up here. Okay? Now the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put B in the bottom of x. Okay? So here, that is 11. Now, they're both positive. That's important. They're both pluses. That will come into play next time. Hey, Johnny, would you please go in and talk to Dad? Thank you. Okay. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to create a factor list. Of the number that is C. So I'm going to make a little list over here. And I'm going to ask myself, what multiplies to be 18? And I'm going to make a little list. So I've got 1 and 18. I've got 2 and 9. And I have 3 and 6. Okay, so these are all positive. So I only have those 3 possibilities. Okay, now what I do is I ask myself which pair of factors will add up to B. Okay? So I'm looking here and I say, okay, 1 plus 18, is that 11? No. Is 2 plus 9? Yes. Just want to make sure there's no other possibilities. 3 plus 6 is 9. Okay, so we know that 2 and 9 are my choices. So the fifth thing I'm going to do is put those numbers in the sides of the x. So I've got 2 and 9, so I'm going to put 2 here and 9 here. Now it's important to fill that out. It's a good habit. It's part of the work that you show me, and also next year we're going to be taking that and taking that one step further. So actually from this position you're going to do something else with the 2 and the 9. So it's important that you put there. Okay. The sixth thing we're going to do is put our answers in parentheses and then check our work. Okay? So I'm going to take 2 and 9 and I'm going to put that in x plus 2 and x plus 9 because I already know how to factor x squared. X times x is x squared. Okay? Now I'm going to check it using FOIL, which is what we did in our last lesson. So x times x is x squared, x times 9, 2 times x, and 2 times 9. Okay, now I did that kind of fast, but I'm hoping after having practiced 10 or 15 of them in our last lesson, you're pretty good at it. Okay, now I add 2 and 9, and I get this. Is that the same as what I started with? Yes, it is. So I know that this answer is correct. And that's how I do it. Okay, so let's do another one. And we will have our steps. You should have that looking at that so that you can fill that out or follow those. Now we're going to factor a squared plus 7a plus 10. Okay, so my first step is to put the 10 in the top, and then I'm going to put the 7 in the bottom, and now I'm going to make my list of factors. So my factors of 10, this is all part of the work you show me. 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Is there anything else? No, that's all of them. And everything is positive. That's important. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 and 5 there. And then I've got x plus 2 and x plus 5. That's my answer. Now let's check it by using FOIL. So x times x is x squared. Outside is x times 5. Inside is 2 times x. And last is 10. So I get x squared plus 7x. Oops, I am so sorry. This needs to be an A. I just automatically go for x. Well, my goodness. Okay. Glad I caught that. A squared plus 7a plus 10. And that's what I started with, so I know I got it right. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try 2 on your own. Here's number 1. X squared plus 19x plus 60. And number 2, x squared plus 12x plus 36. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and we'll come back and do some more. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is put 60 on the top and 19 on the bottom. And now I'm going to make my factors list. So what goes into 60? Now usually I work my outside in, and I'm kind of thinking that way. So I'm going to start with 1 and 60. You'd be surprised how often that one gets used. Does 2 go into 60? Yes. Does 3 go into 60? Yes. Does 4 go into 60? Yes. Does 5 go into 60? Uh-huh. How about 6? Yep, 6 times 10. Does 7 go into 60? No. Does 8 go into 60? No. Does 9? not evenly, and then I get to 10. So with 6 and 10, I have 6 and 10, I tried 7, 8, 9. I have moved outside in, so I know I've covered all of the possible factors. Okay, so which two add up to 19? That'd be 4 and 15. So this is your work you show me, and this is your work. So I've got x plus 4 and x plus 15. Okay, so let's check that with FOIL. And I get 19x plus 60, and that's what I started with. Okay, let's do number 2. What multiplies to be 36 and adds to be 12? Okay, so my factors of 36 are 1 and 36, 2 and 18. Does 3 go into 36? Yes. 12 times. How about 4? 9. How about 5? No, 5 doesn't. How about 6? Yes, 6 times 6. Okay. So which two add up to 12? Well, 6 and 6. I can have the same thing. So I end up with x plus 6 and x plus 6. So let's check it. First, outside, inside, last, and I get that. Okay, and it's correct. So here's my answer. X plus 6 times x plus 6. Okay, I hope you understood those first two and the OIOs. Now let's try something that doesn't have all pluses. So let's factor n squared minus 6n plus 8. Okay? So we're going to make our magic x, what multiplies to be 8 and adds to be negative 6. See, it's nice to have an x like this because it gives us a little place to put everything and keep track of our answers and our possibilities. Okay? And our steps. Okay, so what multiplies to be positive 8? Well, you've got 1 and 8. That's true. Also, 2 and 4. The problem is I have a minus here now. So I have to add up to a negative 6. Do you see how I brought that negative down here? You have to make sure you do that. Whatever the sign is of this term and of this one, you need to put that in magic x. So also, I have another set of factors. I've got negative 1 and negative 8, because a negative times a negative is positive. All right, and also I have negative 2 and negative 4. So of those 4 possibilities, which two add up to negative 6? Right here, negative 2 and negative 4. So I would get n minus 2 and n minus 4. Okay? Now, I'm not going to do the check this time just because I don't want to worry about having the video too long. I'm just going to trust you to handle that. Okay. Number 4. Y squared plus 2y minus 15. Okay? So, this problem is a little different. Here, I've got a positive 2. The second term is positive. And here, my constant is negative. So that's going to change things up a little bit. And I'm going to ask myself what multiplies to be negative 15 and adds to be positive 2. That makes it a little different. Okay. Now, we have somebody at the front door. That's okay. Let's see who it is. I guess it's a friend. And the friend's gonna come in. That's okay. Hi, Eve. We have Eve is coming over to visit. Just so you know, my daughter's wearing her wedding at Christmas time. Anyway, they love all stuff like that. Anything to get off topic. Okay. So, what multiplies to be negative 15? Now, the negative 15 tells me that one factor is positive, and one factor is negative. I'm so sorry about that. A friend came over, but she will be outside and she will do social distancing. Okay? All right. So I have to have a positive and a negative for my factors because I end up with a negative answer. So I'm not going to have two positives and I'm not going to have two negatives. Okay? So when I'm making my list, I have to look at one of each. So I could have -1 and positive 15, right? -1 times positive 15 is -15. Or I could switch that, right? 1 and -15. Okay, what else multiplies by 15? Well, 3 and 5, so I could have 3 and -5. Or I could have -3 and positive 5. Just one of them is going to be positive. But with those combinations, that doubles the number of factor possibilities that I can look at. And you want to write them all down. This is part of the work you need to show me because I need to see your thinking process. I need to see what you write down. And looking at them will actually help you. So what if I add these two together, what do I get here? I get 14, I get -14. If I'm adding, I get -2 and I get +2. So obviously the two I'm going to pick are right here because I have a +2 up here in my second term. So I have -3 and +5. So I end up with y minus 3 and y plus 5. Now that's really important, and this is where you go slow because I know some of you are going to be really good at this and you're going to start whipping through these. You want to get your math done. I totally get that. It's probably going to be a beautiful day, okay? But you need to slow down enough that you catch all of these details, all right? All right, so I'm going to give you some OIOs. So we have number 1, x squared minus 4x plus 3. Number 2, m squared plus m minus 20. Oh my gosh, it's like lunchtime. Smells so good in here. W squared plus 6w minus 16. So why don't you go ahead and do those three, pause the video, and we'll come back. Okay, so let's go over these. I'm going to change colors just because I can. Make it a little interesting. How about orange? Okay. So what multiplies to be 3 and adds to be -4? Well, I've got 1 and 3, or -1 and -3. So, which two add to be the -4? It would be -1 and -3. So I get x minus 1 and x minus 3. Okay? All right, over here, I've got -20, whoops, and there's nothing in front of the m. So when there's nothing there, I know I just have an m, 1m. So I'm going to put a 1 down here. Okay, so now what are my factors of -20? I've got -1 and 20, 1 and -20. Does 2 go into 20? Yes, it does. 10 times. Okay, how about 3? Does 3 go into 20? No. How about 4? Yes, 4 goes in 5 times. So there's my list. So which pair of factors adds up to +1? Well, it's this one, -4 and +5. So I end up with m minus 4 and m plus 5. Okay? Now over here, I've got -16 and +6. So what are my factors? I have -1 and 16, 1 and -16. Does 2 go in? Yes. Okay. Does 3 go into 16? No. How about 4? Yep. And it doesn't matter. I don't have to write that one twice, because only one of the 4s would be negative. Okay, so which 2 add to be 6? This one, negative 2 and 8. So I get W minus 2 and W plus 8. Okay, so now we're going to do one more. And this is an easy concept, but it's going to end up being half of your homework. So make sure that you really know how to do this, all right? Now we're going to solve for x. So we're going to add one more step. We're not just going to factor, we're going to find an answer for x, okay? So here is our problem. We have, hey, Chris, would you handle that, please? Actually, I'm going to make this a microphone. I think somebody is delivering a kiss to the door. We're going to have to get him.
Get what, the dog?
Yes, he's not stopping. Okay, thank you. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to factor, and then I'm going to set each factor equal to 0, and then I'm going to solve twice. When I have an x squared, that tells me that I actually have 2 answers. Okay, it's not just one answer. Even if they're the same answer, there are 2 answers. The highest exponent tells me how many answers there are when I'm trying to solve. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do magic x. So I've got negative 18 and positive 3. So what are my factors? I've got 1 and negative 18. Negative 1 and 18. I've got 2 and negative 9. Negative 2 and 9. Okay, always have to have the different sign possibilities. How about 3 and negative 6 and negative 3 and 6? Does 4 go into 18? No. Does 5 go into 18? No. And then 6 is next. So it completes all the possibilities. All right, so which 2 add up to positive 3? Well, these 2 do. So I've got negative 3 and 6 there. Now, here's where I do the next thing. I'm taking this to the next level. I have x minus 3 and x plus 6. That's how I factor. But what I'm looking at here is an equation. So instead of having my trinomial written out like this, the factor form is equal to it. It just looks different. It has a different appearance. It's in a different form. So I'm going to write x minus 3 and x plus 6, and I set that equal to 0. Now to solve, I take each one and I set it equal to 0. So I have x minus 3 equals 0 and x plus 6. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and I get x equals 3. And then I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 6. Okay, so that's it. Now, your homework is going to be a worksheet, and it's a practice worksheet, and I will also send the answer key. Okay, I'm going to close this. I hope that you can see me. So it's going to be a white paper, but it's from a book like this, and half of the problems are just factoring, and half of them are solved. So you're going to have the other half, you do the factoring, and then you set each factor equal to 0, just like it was number 5 that we just did. So make sure that you do both kinds. Okay, I know you're going to do great. It's not that difficult. You guys are all very smart, but it's going to be great preparation for Algebra 1. So I hope you have a great Wednesday, and we will be in touch soon. Bye.